Hello, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me here live from Germany, talking about my impressions of AWS Enterprise Summit, not just AWS Summit, but Enterprise Summit. Funny, if you were on social media yesterday, you could see there was two AWS Summit hashtags going on, not just the one in Frankfurt, but also one in Bangalore. Interesting to see, and some of the interesting tweets from Bangalore I also collected on my Storyfy. So check that out for the key tweets of the event. We were welcomed by a gentleman who seems to be running the enterprise show over at Amazon in Germany, Carlo Pacifico, well, great, he did a good job, was a little bit scripted, talked about what the summit is about. It was over 1,200 participants, which is pretty good. It's not the same as AWS Summit, which AWS usually has in Berlin, which is usually, or last year, which I attended, around 3,000 participants. There were 6 tracks, 45 presentation, 25 people speaking from customers. We'll come back to that. And also, I would even say more exhibitors than Berlin last year. So that gives a good sign of AWS traction. No surprise, AWS training and certification, enterprise support, which you can get for AWS. AWS was also recruiting potentially. So hiring more than 100 plus people, I think Pacifico said. The partner team was equally there, and of course the AWS cloud experts. And with that, they dove into what was probably the best contributor keynote, which was done again, an automotive industry customer, Continental, the tire manufacturer, is also in OEM high-tech component, therefore needs to be agile. You can guess how this leads to cloud. The team gets some interesting insights, how they reorganized IT to become more agile, which is the whole leitmotif of what's happening in Europe by trying to get faster, getting more agile, moving out things, using the cloud for that. No surprise, and changing the IT model to that. But the really interesting thing was making a showcase, unfortunately a showcase and demo of what is Howden Lucas, which is toy fair, not a toy fair, Luna Park like skill challenge where you hit a big sledgehammer on how strong you hit that. They called it, I believe, but can't find it here. I'm not sure if this is the right, High Striker. Maybe High Striker is the correct translation, I didn't check it, but they used it with a Raspberry Pi behind the High Striker, using Kinesis fire hose, putting all that in an S3 bucket, using Elasticalize it, visualize it, show it even on a mobile device, using DynamoDB, great showcase. They position it as a way for their teams to learn more about AWS in a playful kind of like manner without really matter. But it would have been better and nice to see a real production-like application. And Pacifica was back, used the usual number of functions available in AWS. It's over 2,260 now. Very impressive. I mean, the eye chart of all the AWS function gets much more detailed here. And here, haha, pun intended, was the next speaker. Fortunately not German speaking, but I mean, that's all okay. English is the lingua franca of IT, no question of that. But not a German use case, but a startup from the UK, which does autonomous driving. Very impressive from a real-time perspective, and no question they're running it in AWS. Next, AWS got their own Stephen Orban on stage to talk about the future of enterprise IT, which was interesting as a presentation, highly conceptual, which normally is valued by German, European audiences. But I think AWS might have missed a little bit what really is needed in Germany, which is more about showcases, what can be done with technology. And then even non-German parts would be, customers reference showcase would be interesting, as people always last to hear the latest from Silicon Valley or from the US being a modern real-time adaptation. I liked Orban's 6R model about what to do with moving to the cloud. So all good, but a little bit potentially too academic. Yeah, not the right thing yet for the audience. We'll come to that. So what are my 3 top takeaways of the event, right? Good event overall for AWS, no question about that. AWS focused on IT best practices, and especially there's something which resounds very well of excellence or the same as expertise. Frankly, that has become a little bit old from the perspective of failures and lots of challenges of the past around systems like in Europe, SAP, right? A great software. You can do anything you want, but once it's hardened out, it's like liquid cement, right? You use sledgehammer to change it. So centers of excellence have not been able to solve that, right? So not only positive connotation around centers of excellence are interesting to do that. Good talking about development operations called really important as a change from that. So that was the key focus of the event. Adoption remains a challenge, right? Having an event in Germany, no live German customer is not good. I'm sure AWS knows it, but gives some pause, and this is why the header of my blog posts and the videos here is the road to cloud adoption in Germany is still long. Last year we heard from Audi, we heard from I think it was the Städel Museum or the Berlin Philharmonic, so maybe an update about where they were doing, what they were doing at the time. It was all pilots, would have been good, but obviously it wasn't able to show. AWS knows it, but gives me some thinking about where cloud adoption is in Germany potentially. And prospects and customers to which I spoke to at the event, they're looking for showcases. They don't look for the best practices yet, because that's what you do when you say, okay, I invest to the cloud, this is what I want to build, how do I get it done, how do I change my IT organization? It's not the other way, how do I change my IT organization, and then I want to see what to build, right? It's the business case, the showcase, the next generation application, which drives the move to the cloud. So overall, my point of view, POV, a good event for AWS. It needs to keep evangelizing, something AWS does really, really well. Kudos to AWS to really push a security agenda on a worldwide level. The CISO was here again. Always a question, is it safe to move to the cloud? From my impression conversation, the security concerns are kind of like flowing, ebbing down. It's really, what can I build? What do I need to build? What can be done there and there? The change management needs to happen in typical German engineering-oriented, high-quality organizations. From like one of the presenters, Konstantin Gonzalez, really liked that, said, okay, the German engineer, which is true, likes to lock himself or herself up in a room for 3 years and then have a great product coming out. That's no longer a viable concept. So that change management, changing how software is being built, is an important aspect to address. And then overall, like I've been saying last year, AWS and the LBS reInvent 2 needs to come to more packaged plans, right? Number of services, huge amount of things which can be done. The problem for CXOs to decide to use AWS platform is that every reference they talk to, everybody is done a little differently. For not fit that well, AWS didn't have that capability, engineers stayed with something they knew, many, many reasons. But every time it's a little different path taken, trying to show the different paths here, is something which concerns a CXO who has to tie his career much, much more in Europe than in North America to success of a project. Out the hard way by a good friend of mine said, like, how many times can you fail with an ERP implementation in the US? And the US is a different culture there, right? It's about fail fast. You have to learn something from that and keep going and fail, yeah, like I said, fail fast. Minimum viable product was something mentioned a lot. Whereas in Europe, it's still reputation problem in many of the markets, that if you fail, your career, your reputation is tarnished. So that's something which has to become over. So still a lot of in the why cloud and what do I do with that, especially what are those use cases, and comes the how. And for my personal, much more how today than the why and what, or yesterday actually at AWS Summit in AWS Enterprise Summit in Frankfurt. Good progress, and Germany is long. Thanks for watching.